Good evening, everyone who joined us for the webinar this evening. Appreciate your time. We wanted to make this update to give you as much as possible information with regards to Thailand reopening plan and the current status. My colleague Miguel, who looks after our Thailand operations, is with us, but unfortunately we have a bit of a technical issue, so he will try to join us as soon as possible. But otherwise, I'll walk through the presentation. Besides me or us presenting, we also wanted to make it as interactive as possible. So towards the end, there is a Q&A section you see down on the right corner. Please put your questions and we will try to answer them as detailed and as much as possible information, because we understand, I'm sure there is a lot of information given out by the media, a lot of sometimes maybe contradictory feedback. So we'll try to clear the situation. So let's start. We'll go through the general country updates, then we'll talk in details about the Phuket Sandbox, about what are the requirements, what's needed before arrival, what's needed during your stay for the guests, and of course, the whole journey. And also we'll look at what is the plan for Thailand's reopening further in the coming months. Now, COVID or the pandemic has certainly been a challenge and a difficult time for many of us. It's been certainly also longer than any of us could have anticipated. All started last year, February, March, and then obviously things escalated towards April and May. Here in Thailand, if I look back, I think we were relatively lucky compared to many of the other destinations and countries. We really didn't have such a drastic lockdowns as certainly in Europe countries experienced or other parts of the world. I think if I look back maybe April and May last year, that's when most of us were staying home. Most of the offices and businesses were really shut or working on a very restrictive capacity or very limited number of personnel in the offices. But after that, if we look what was happening with the country, within the country, things were okay. I mean, schools were reopened, shops were running as per normal hours. Even restaurants and all of the bars, etc., eventually have reopened to its full capacity. So we didn't have restrictions within the movement within the country. Of course, international borders remained closed since that time until July. Thailand was very strict on the requirements to enter into the country for any foreigner travelers, as well as the local citizens who were leaving somewhere else abroad or were going abroad and willing to come back into Thailand. They were asking for a strict 14 days or actually 14 nights quarantine. The stay had to be done only in the designated hotels. You had to have a certain level of insurance and so on and so forth. So from that angle, Thailand has really been strict on the entry requirements. But things have been changing, and slowly country which depends on tourism was looking how it can reopen the borders. So they came up with this pilot model, which is called Phuket Sandbox. Now, why they selected Phuket is because basically, I mean, as an island, it's much easier to restrict the entry. It's much easier to control the movement of people and overall kind of create a safe environment for people who come into the country, as well as for the domestic population. So Phuket Sandbox program was initiated, I think now 5 months ago. Obviously, took a lot of talks back and forth, different discussions. Us as a business and all of our fellow other DMC companies, as well as different hoteliers and other type of businesses were involved in those discussions and brainstorming sessions and so on. So that plan was finalized and put in place as of 1st of July. I also have to add that one other important factor for this model to work was for the government to ensure that over 70% of local population has been vaccinated, which I think was a great achievement within a very short period of time. So towards the end of June, 70% of Phuket population, whether it's Thai citizens or foreigner workers working in Phuket, they've all received vaccine. Now, who can access Phuket Sandbox? So let's look at that. So first of all, people who would like to travel into Phuket Sandbox must be fully vaccinated, meaning they must have 2 doses of vaccine, unless it's vaccine such as Johnson & Johnson, which requires only 1 shot. Now, the full vaccination must be completed at least 14 days before departure into Thailand. That's also a very important point to keep in mind. Now, the certificate of the vaccine shall be available and shall be presented in English. So if a vaccine certificate is issued in your home country in any other language, please ensure that it is translated into English and is certified, so it's validated as a regional translation. Now, children under 18 years old do not require to have a vaccine as long as they're traveling with a family member or with a parent or with an official guardian. Now, it's also important to remember that not all countries until now eligible to enter into even the Phuket Sandbox. There is a list which is updated and issued every 14 days by the government. Now it covers most of the countries, but still, please watch out for that list. Only countries which fall under low and medium risk countries, as recognized by the Ministry of Public Health in Thailand, are eligible for this model. So yes, I know it's 14 days is not a long period of time, but given the environment we are still in with a lot of instability, I think it's reasonable. It's reasonable approach for now. In terms of the vaccines, this is a list of vaccines which, as of now, again, is approved by Thai Ministry of Health. So we have AstraZeneca, we have Sinovac, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, Sinopharm, Pfizer. So these are the ones which are officially recognized. The government at the moment is working with two more vaccine producers, BioNTech and Sputnik, to be also approved. It's an ongoing discussion. We believe that within probably next couple of weeks, they will be also confirmed. Now, any other vaccines which are out there, and I think we all know that there are more companies coming on into the market with their vaccine. At the moment, there is no discussion. Of course, if anything gets updated, we will let you know. Now, if we look at the actual process of Phuket Sandbox, there are several steps. It all starts with pre-arrival to Phuket. Now, all of the guests must receive COE, which is Certificate of Entry. We've put a link there for those who might not yet have it. Of course, after the presentation, we will share with you the slide, so you will have that link, this link as well. So guests must go into this page and basically fill in all of the fields which are required and attach all of the documents which are needed and requested by the government. Now, the required documents, you will see underneath there, the last column. Of course, valid passport, ideally at least 6 months before expiration. You need to have a vaccination certificate, as I've just mentioned. You need to have a travel insurance, international travel insurance, with a minimum coverage of $100,000. This is a must. Anything below that will not be approved. It's just the system will not approve it. It will be rejected. Guests must have a ticket confirmation booking at a SHA Plus hotel. Now, for those of you who might not know what SHA Plus means, basically, SHA Plus is a certification, again, issued to a hotel, so any tour operators here in Thailand whose personnel has been vaccinated, at least at a ratio of 70% of the total staff that is working for that company. So most of Phuket hotels, by far, that are currently operating have been certified, so I don't think there will be much issue with finding the suitable property that your guest will be willing to stay in. And recently, the last update, which I think is very critical, that guests must have confirmation of all of the PCR tests which they will be doing during the stay in Phuket. Now, when those tests will be done, there will be a slide shortly. We will go through it. But for now, important is please remember PCR tests must be booked in advance. I know it might be still seen as an inconvenience, but that's a regulation as of now, so we just have to respect it and follow. So how PCR tests can be done, or the booking for PCR tests can be done? They can be done through any agent you're booking. So basically, in this case, of course, with us, if you're booking accommodation and services with us, we will take care of it and we'll coordinate the necessary arrangement. If in case a hotel booking is done directly, in that case, PCR test booking must be done via hotel directly. Payment for PCR test is a must, prepayment. Unfortunately, there is no way around it because payment is controlled by the government. They want to make sure that the payment for PCR test is received, and only then hospital will issue to us or to a hotel the confirmation document, which we will then forward to you, so you guests can apply for the COE through that website, which I mentioned earlier. And of course, visa. Now, the situation with visa is as following. If we look at this, it's the period pre-COVID, and if the traveler from that country requires visa, this still remains in place. So you need to go and apply for visa. In case if the country had a bilateral agreement with Thailand where visa is not needed, so let's say it's a free entry for 30 days stay, then this is fine. So you don't need to apply for a visa in this case. Visa on arrival is cancelled. So again, this option is not available. Therefore, again, we're coming back to the earlier point. Please make sure that visa are applied for. Now, once it's done, then you have all of the, the COE, you have the booking and so on. You have to make sure that all of it is printed because it will be checked at the customs. It will be also checked probably at the boarding because at the gate, they will check that you have the COE, that there is a booking, that there is all the confirmations. They're very strict. So make sure that all of the documents that the guests received, they're all printed. Now, before departure, one other important point is PCR test. It has to be done 72 hours before the departure time. So not the arrival time to Thailand, because the flight can take longer. You might have, obviously, in this situation, a lot of flights, with a connection elsewhere. So 72 hours are counted from the moment of boarding the plane, not arrival into Thailand. So again, please factor that in when arranging the services, when planning the journey into Thailand. Now, when the guests arrive into Thailand, the initial step remains pretty much the same as we all know. I mean, you arrive, you have to go through the customs, you have to go through, through all of the regular steps. Now, at the customs, of course, again, they check more carefully the documents. They want to make sure that all of the paperwork is in place. They will also ask the guests to install a mobile app. It's a tracking mobile app. The guests don't need to do really much except download it, put the details in, and that's it. And just keep it with them. There is no other steps needed. I know that recently in the media there was circulated the point about tracking bracelets being put on guests and so on. I think it was put a little bit out of context as well. It doesn't go to that extreme. The only case where the government said that they are thinking about putting a bracelet is only in case if a guest who is traveling doesn't have any mobile device. Now, at these days, I think the chance of that is very small and very minor. So again, I would put aside that point about tracking bracelets or whatsoever. It is not the case as long as the guest has a mobile phone with him or her. Now, after all of the procedure at the airport is done, guests receive the luggage. The transportation is then provided directly into the hotel where they booked. So they cannot go elsewhere. They cannot go to a restaurant, or they cannot stop anywhere for sightseeing. So the transfer must go directly into the hotel, so that the guests will wait until the PCR test results are come out. Sorry, and actually now I think I've missed a step. Also, at the airport, guests will receive one more PCR test. For adults, that's a proper PCR test, so through the nasal and then the oral swab. And for children, it's just a saliva swab, so it's not a full step procedure. Upon doing so, like I said, guests go directly into the hotel and waiting for the results. All of the hotels have been instructed that, disregarding what time the flight is arriving, whether it's 7 a.m. or late in the evening or whatever it is, rooms will be provided to the guests. So there will be no need to wait for a regular check-in time, 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. So the guests will be directly accommodated into the room and will be there until the results come out. Now, it's been so far 7 days since this Phuket model has reopened. I think the average time guests are waiting for the results is about 12 hours. Yes, again, maybe a slight inconvenience, but after a long flight, maybe it gives them time to relax, unpack, shower, get rest, order some in-room dining, wait for the results, and that's it. After the results come out, of course, if they're negative, that's basically from that point onwards, guests can go anywhere, whether within the hotel, use the facilities, or go anywhere else in Phuket. The only important point is they must stay within the Phuket grounds. So they cannot go to Khao Lak or they cannot go elsewhere. They must remain within the Phuket grounds throughout the entire stay of 14 nights. Now, during the stay, I think I've mentioned earlier, there will be a need to do extra couple of PCR tests. One PCR test will be done on day 6 or 7, and one more on day 12 or 13. Now, travelers, like for all of the PCR tests, will be responsible to cover the cost. At this stage, this is not subsidized. This is not for free. So there is a price to pay. At the moment, the rate is set at 2,800 baht. At certain private hospitals, it can go up to 3,500 Thai baht. That's excluding any transportation to the hospital or any other expenses they might have. So that cost has to be covered by the guest. But like we said before as well, anyways, they've paid it before arriving into the country. The government is now setting up certain stations, PCR test stations across the island to make sure it's as convenient and as close as possible to the hotels of the guests where they are staying. But again, please inform your guests that PCR tests are not done at the resort, are not done in-house, so they will have to spend some time to go and get it done. A couple of our guests have done it over the last few days. They said on average the whole process, depending of course on the location of a hotel and the venue where they go to do the PCR test, it takes an hour and a half or so. Now, once they've done the test, they don't need to go back and log themselves in. They will just get the results the next day, or if they do it in the morning, towards the evening. But then the rest of the day continues as normal. So they don't need to go back and wait for the results in this case. Now, in the last part, which I've mentioned here in the slide, it says turn on the GPS. So basically, whenever the guests are traveling anywhere, they should have that mobile with that app installed with them. So don't leave the phone anywhere in the room. Take it with them. There is no really a clear fine or clear guideline said what will happen if the guests don't have that phone with them. But recommendation is why to try your luck. That's a requirement. So just please ask your guests to make sure that it is with them. Of course, our team on the ground will also remind them that this is a requirement to follow. So yeah, I hope it's clear. Now, Phuket Sandbox, as I mentioned, is designed in the way where guests must stay at least 14 nights before going anywhere else in Thailand. So let's say if they want to afterwards travel to Bangkok, or they want to go and visit Chiang Mai or anywhere else, move to Samui and so on, they need to stay 14 nights in Phuket. Only after that, they are basically free to travel anywhere else across the country. On the other side, if somebody is flying into Phuket Sandbox model and want to stay only 10 nights, not 14, that's possible. So that's not an issue if somebody wants just to stay a shorter period of time, as long as they have a return flight out of Phuket, direct international. So they cannot do a transit anywhere else in Thailand. They must fly international flight out of Phuket airport. If the guests are staying in Thailand, let's say 20 nights or 30 nights or even longer period of time, please remind them that they will also need to do a PCR test 72 hours before departing the country. It is not really a regulation by Thailand, but most of the airlines, and I believe most of the destinations now as well, are asking for PCR test anyway before boarding, 72 hours. So that test will have to be done. They are available in most of the cities right now. I mean, in Bangkok, it's easily accessible. Actually, there is no need to really make a booking if it is required for international flights. Guests just walk into one of the international hospitals, and it's done right there. Results depending on the hospital. I think safely to say better plan to have at least 24 hours, because that's what will be the time until the results come out. When they do the PCR test for international flight, please ask them or tell the guests, again, we from our side will also remind that they need to receive a certificate from the hospital, which they will present at the boarding gate before flying out of Thailand. So that's Phuket Sandbox. Like I said, it started 7 days, now it's eight days ago. So far, there were no specific problems or issues. Everyone who's been arriving, went through the process smoothly. We haven't heard that there were particular issues upon arrival or during the stay. So it's been running all right. Thailand is now, the government is really in the final talks to confirm the details for Samui Sandbox, which will officially start in just 1 week's time. Tomorrow there is a big meeting and also a conference which we will be attending as well, where hopefully more details will be given on the reopening plan and requirements for Samui. It's going to be Samui, Phangan, and Thao route, which will also be combinable, hopefully, eventually with Phuket. So that's the idea, that people might combine Phuket and Samui. How it will work exactly, we don't have the final details, and I better wait until everything is official. Then from 1st of August, the plan is to also add Krabi as well as Phang Nga area, which probably most of you know as Khao Lak and Koh Yao. So hopefully by 1st of August, that will happen. Afterwards, if everything goes well, 1st of September, the north of Thailand come into play, as well as the center of Thailand, such as Pattaya. And finally, the objective, which was also given to us by the Prime Minister just a few weeks ago, that by October or within October, other regions of Thailand will reopen, which obviously for us another important hub is Bangkok. So October is really a timeline which many businesses and everyone is working towards too. Of course, it's subject to possible fluctuation, so nothing is yet definite and set in stone. Dates might move, certain things might change, but that's at least a projection of how the country will be bringing back tourism, because I think everyone understands by now that the next high season is very critical. It's critical for countries, for economy, and obviously for people's welfare. So everyone is working. Now, we also asked some of our team members and friends who are right now in Phuket to make few pictures and videos of how Phuket is right now. So this is a fresh footage, raw footage of this week. So let me just show you. It just takes a couple of minutes, but hopefully gives you a little bit of a vibe and colors how Phuket is these days. In Phuket, things are open. Of course, not all of the businesses are returning to normal. Not all of the shops are, back and being busy. But everyone who operates and who reopen its doors, whether it's restaurants, bars, or shopping, those things are functioning as normal. There is no yet late entertainment venues, so everything really closes after 11 p.m. But I guess if for guests who want to have light meal and dinner, or have an extra drink and even listen to some live music, that's feasible. So the videos. So this video. I think this video is almost, anyway, it's finishing. It's just to showcase how the arrival is. And I see a question about the face mask, and I'll get back to it shortly. Let me then just quickly swap it to another one and see if its connection allows us to do it smoother. Okay, so we've got 2 questions now. Meanwhile, while the video is loading, any guests staying in Phuket only can be any nights if they're not traveling out of Phuket. Will PCR test pre-departure is needed for everyone before departure, which means they need to do the minimum 25. Okay, good question. Okay, while we are loading the video, so again, guests can stay shorter period of time. So if somebody wants to come into Phuket and stay just 5 nights, it's possible, no problem. As long as they fly into Phuket by international flight, so connection, let's say in Dubai or connection in Singapore, that's fine if they need to do it. So as long as that international flight lands afterwards in Phuket, they stay 5 nights, and they can also depart earlier than 14 nights as long as the flight out of Phuket is going directly again back to Dubai or back to Singapore or wherever the destination is. About the PCR test, so PCR test, you have to count basically, count the hours. So you have a PCR test upon arrival into Phuket. So from there on, you count 72 hours. If they planning to depart Phuket after 72 hours, then yes, they will need to do another test. They already have in plan on day 6 and 7 another PCR test. So again, they've done it. From there on, you count 72 hours. If the departure doesn't fall within the time period, they will have to do another PCR test. And the same after PCR test, which they do on day 12 and 13. If, let's say, they are departing from Phuket on day 17 and they've done the day on day 12, yes, they will need to do another PCR test again before flying out of Phuket. So yeah, just count the hours between the PCR test and when the actual departure flight is out of Phuket or out of Thailand if they go anywhere else outside of Phuket after 14-night stay. Okay, let me try to get back quickly to the video and then we'll return to the questions. Isn't stable, but again we'll send the slides and we'll send you the raw footage so you can have a look. But as you see again, this is the picture which was thrown. So there is this night markets, right? Those are stalls, clothing shopping. Those things are available. Of course, maybe not to the same, to the same volume and the number of stalls as it used to be pre-COVID, when the country was welcoming 30+ million tourists a year, but it's a step forward, and I think it's an important point just to remember that this is a step forward. That's actually, with the pride, I can say it is the first country in Southeast Asia which has reopened its borders. Okay, sorry. Let's get back to the slides. Okay. So, returning to the questions, can you please, okay, face masks. Face mask is something what everyone here is wearing. It's just became a norm for the time being. Whether you walk in the street or you go to a grocery store, or as soon as you are out in the public, people are wearing it. It is more strict as such. I mean, there isn't. It's just everyone is doing it, right? So if somebody suddenly doesn't put it, it becomes a little bit awkward. So everyone in Bangkok, absolutely everyone is wearing it daily. Of course, once you get into the environment of an office, you take it off. As soon as you get into the restaurant, you take it off. But once you're outside or in a public transport or walking through a shopping mall, people are wearing masks. On the beach, again, it's needed, but to a reasonable level. I mean, if somebody is lying down on the beach, of course, nobody's going to come and check and say why you're not wearing masks, and people are much more relaxed. But if they're going to, Phuket town, or they're walking through a shopping mall in, central in Patong, of course, they will be required to wear a mask. So it's about balancing, right? It's balancing between when you see the environment is putting a mask on versus an environment where people are much more relaxed and enjoying the holidays and so on. So there is no strict rule of when and how you will wear a mask or where you not. You just have to see with the flow. But again, generally, public is wearing it. Taxi drivers all are wearing masks. So it's became for the time being, it became a norm. Okay, next question. How long does it take to take a swab test? Is the queue long? And okay, Miguel, thank you. Miguel has already responded. So look, the whole process of arrival, maybe 45 minutes, maybe, I mean, depends. So far, there haven't been really a huge traffic to make long queues. 30 to 45 minutes, let's say an hour, that's a max from the moment they land to the point they leave the airport and they get into the car. The tests are done quickly. There is no, I mean, so far there was enough stations and enough personnel to make sure that the tests are done quite promptly. Okay, next question is, when entertainment venue is expected to open? Good question. I don't think there is any timeline given. It's all about building a confidence. And to be fair, this reflects or relates to everything else. Whether a 14 nights stay is a must in Phuket, or they will reduce it to 10, or they will reduce it to 7. It's all about building the confidence on all levels, whether it's on the government level, of course, the health officials, and the general public. So I think as soon as Phuket feels that the tourism flow is going well and there is no, cases of outbreak, or there is no specific problems, I think those things will start gradually reopening and happening also in Phuket. Because like I said at the beginning of the presentation, actually we've been relatively lucky here in Thailand. All of those things are or were working throughout the whole last 18 months. So we didn't really have a lot of period when things were really, really shut. It's just now for the Phuket model, they want to go step by step and build that confidence. So when, maybe I'd say my personal guess based on being here, I think it might take another month or maybe a couple of months when Phuket life or nightlife will start resuming its operations, subject of course to how the situation is handled. Okay. Thank you for clarification. Thank you, which means all guests is expected to do one PCR test during the stay, as we from Singapore is very likely around 4 to 5 nights. Yeah, so you will have to do, so if you come to, let's say for 5 nights, so you will do a test at the airport when you arrive, and you will do a test probably on day 4 one more time, just to make sure that the window before your departure flight out of Phuket will be within the 72-hour period. Okay, next question. Birgitta, thank you. Will Diethelm staff have the possibility time to visit the different destinations relatively shortly after the openings? This is with the standard of hotels in mind. Yes, absolutely. Actually, so we have a team who is there already, obviously the operational guys. So they are in Phuket and they've been there, preparing since few weeks already. Once we knew that things gonna go ahead and officially will be reopening. Miguel and myself might be going also to Phuket, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. We are just waiting for a few things. For domestic travelers, they are now requiring us to have a vaccine. Miguel got his vaccine a few weeks ago. I've just got mine few days ago. So I just need to wait 14-day period before I can go into Phuket, and then yes, we are going there for sure. The same with all of the other destinations. For the rest of the team, we also planned the trips across Thailand, across all of the core regions. Of course, first focusing on those parts which we know are going to reopen, because that's where we see the critical need to see what's happening on the ground. This also brings me to another good point. I think we have to keep in mind, Thailand didn't have tourism for 18 months, literally, right? I mean, domestic tourism, yes, but international, the borders were shut. So with that, not everything is 100% back to how it used to be before pandemic. So, certain shops might not be simply there, or certain restaurants might also not be there. So I think that's something to keep in mind, that of course, especially those travelers who return to Thailand year after year, if they come back now, they might be overwhelmed or might be surprised, or whatever the feeling is, they certainly will see a different Thailand. On the different side, though, I mean, you have an absolute clear waters, empty beaches. So I think those who want to really travel and explore, that now is the right time, because they will see a fresh destination. Okay, how is the hygiene policy in Thailand now, other than the face mask? Okay, so face mask, as I mentioned, literally every building you walk in, they've installed the temperature scans. Some places still use the manual scan, which they just point at your palm or at your head and quickly scan the temperature. Others have installed a more sophisticated equipment, similar frame scanner, like you go into the airport to check on the metal detector. The same kind of equipment where you don't even notice, you just walk through it and they just check and scan the temperature. All of the office buildings or hotels or bigger establishments, with a lot of people working in or coming in and out, they're doing regular disinfection, usually done at night, so it's not disturbing anyone. So they disinfect everything. A lot of sprays are available. People make sure that they wipe tables with alcohol spray, or with they give a sanitizing gel everywhere. So a lot of things are done. And again, now they are done at a point where you don't need to ask. It's just out there and available. If somebody wants to clean the hands, you don't need to ask for it. It's there at the entrance, or it's there at another corner, or right on the table. So I think from that point, people have taken it really seriously. And it's just became a norm as well. It's the same for vehicles. Everyone, including our transportation, we always make sure that we spray the seats, we wipe the seats. Guests can receive, if they want to have again the sanitizer gel, it's available. So things like that are just part of a daily routine. Okay. Will you make webinar about Samui and other destinations? 100%. We actually thought we want to continue doing it on a regular basis. I mean, whether it's going to be every 2 weeks or every month, we have to see. It's subject to really how things evolve, because like with Phuket, I think all of you and also us have been hearing a lot of news for the past few months, but until we got the concrete information, we prefer to wait rather than speculate. And the same with Samui. I mean, we can tell you that it's reopening, which yes, we know it's going to happen, but how and at what requirements, we prefer just to wait a bit and tell you the information when it's really solid and we know that this will be the exact process. Will you recommend to wait a bit to start booking excursions in Phuket? Okay, it's a good question, and I think very important point to remember. So at the moment, the guest must, like I said, must stay in Phuket. meaning the boat trips. So if somebody wants to do a day boat trip of Phuket, unfortunately at the moment it's not possible. So all of the experiences of day tours have to be done within the grounds of Phuket, so by land. But those ones, that's fine. If somebody wants to have a half day experience in Phuket or full day, of course that's possible. The range will be limited maybe to a degree that they have to stay within the island, but other than that, I don't see an issue why not to. So guides are there. Actually, guides, before Phuket officially reopened, we've been speaking with many of the guides, different languages, all of them. Our concern was a lot of them will not return because the business was out for such a long period of time. So we thought many of the guides might have changed the job, or found another profession, or another career advancement, and they will not return back to business because of limited stability and obviously not having it for such a long period of time. But to our surprise, I'd say maybe easily 98%. I'm trying to recall if somebody really said so, but all of them said, listen, as soon as the business is back, as soon as we know tourists are there, we will be ready. We will be ready and we will be providing the service. So I think in terms of guide, there will be really no problem of securing good quality guides to take care of the guests. Okay, if tourists want to stay 3-4 weeks in Thailand, they must do tests on day 1. Yeah, so arrival, correct. 6 and 7, yes. 12, 13 in Phuket, correct. And then only 172 hours before. Yes, correct. That is correct. But I will make one small remark. So in principle, all is correct. But one remark is Thailand, still certain provinces in Thailand, depending on the situation of how the infections are being handled, might request for a PCR test for for domestic flights. It might be. I'm not saying it is the case, but just to watch out for it, because if some tourists are traveling actively, let's say within Thailand afterwards, and they go from Phuket to Chiang Mai, then they stay there for a couple of weeks or for 10 days, and then later they want to fly into Bangkok, they just need to double check if in order to board the flight from Chiang Mai to Phuket, there is no need for any additional PCR test. Like I said, it's just a remark to be aware of, so that the guests are checking about it. Of course, again, from our side, if the guests are planning such services, we will make sure that so full information is given. Now, and why I say a remark, because situation changes. I mean, today it might be like that. Tomorrow things might change. Same as operating hours today until 11 p.m. Maybe tomorrow we can extend it or make it a little bit shorter. So we have to just keep that in mind, that certain flexibility is still there. If they want to stay in Bangkok or other parts of Thailand after this 14 days. Yes, correct. So that's a continuation. Yes. So they can stay anywhere after 14 nights in Phuket. Wherever they want to go in Thailand, not a problem. So they can absolutely travel freely and enjoy, all of the services and so on. Okay, it seems so far. I just want to check that I haven't missed any questions. Seems not. Someone is typing, so let's see if one more question comes in. Good. No, thank you everyone for the question. And like I said, it's good to have that interaction, because I think there is a lot of different news given, and sometimes not always precise. Test 6-7, they must be booked on exact day before arrival at Phuket, or can we book on spot? Who will decide if it will be the 6th or 7th day? Yes, it has to be booked in advance, so the guests can decide, depending on how they are flying, or what is the traveling plan after, let's say, after staying in Phuket, whether they're returning back or they are prolonging the trip, they can decide on what days they want to do the test. So if they want to do it on day 7, that's absolutely fine. They can just make sure that they reserve it in advance. And actually, one other point which I haven't yet said, for this PCR test, At the moment, like I explained, the booking has to be done by a hotel or us in advance, and the payment as well. But the government is now working on a certain application or website where PCR tests can be done by the guests directly and settled directly, so there is no need to go through several intermediaries. It's not done to bypass us, it's actually done for the convenience, because on those PCR tests, there is no, if we look at the commercial part of the whole process, there is no reward for us as such. PCR test is a public rate, 2,800, like I said, or 3,500 Thai baht, which is available for anyone. There is no commission, there is no drop of price if it's done by a travel agent or any other third party. So just really done purely for the convenience of travelers, that they can book PCR tests themselves, settle it, and just have the needed confirmation paper to apply for COE. Okay. Good. If any other questions, please type it. Otherwise, I think from our side for now, that covers it all. I'd like to maybe just one more time reiterate the point that, look, there is a lot of news coming out. Sometimes information is not 100% clear. And that means from our side, we are just trying to be cautious with not communicating, the same day sometimes what comes out in the news, simply because we know that it's not yet confirmed. Meaning our news lines and our updates are only coming out when we know that this is information which has been approved and which is really finalized. So if you have meanwhile any questions, anytime, please reach out to us. Give us a call, message, email. We'll try to give as much as possible the clear information that we have on hands now. And that brings me to the point of Samui and all other presentations. We'll do them for sure. Hopefully Miguel joins us. Yeah. So. We'll do that as soon as the details are finalized. So probably somewhere aiming maybe within a week or 2 weeks time, we'll certainly schedule one more call. Good. Let's wrap up. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for taking the time. We managed to keep it within an hour, which is amazing. This session has been recorded. So we'll share it with everyone as well. So you can please feel free to share it with any of your colleagues, any other contacts you have. We'll also share those 2 videos as well as the slides of this presentation. So again, there is no copyright. Feel free to circulate it. Please feel free to refer it. If any other updates come up also on Phuket, by all means, we'll let you know and we'll keep everyone informed. So thank you, and hope to welcome everyone back to Thailand as soon as possible. So stay well, stay healthy, and take care of yourself. Thank you. Bye-bye.